So welcome to IJ4EU Confidential, where we go behind the scenes of groundbreaking investigative journalism. I'm Timothy Large.
And I'm Milica Miletić.
And Milica and I both work for the International Press Institute in Vienna, where we run the Investigative Journalism for Europe Fund, IJ4EU. For those unfamiliar with it, IJ4EU provides money, legal support, other forms of assistance to newsrooms and freelancers to tackle complex stories on transnational subjects.
I hope this is not the first IJ4EU podcast you're watching and enjoying, and that you know a bit about our work, about the projects we support, and that you know that we already looked into a background and the backstories of these big investigations. So we covered a lot of investigations, covered a variety of topics from organized crime, guess what, corruption, pollution, migration, human rights, variety.
It goes on and on. The difference is that now we're bringing a live audience to these discussions. So this new webinar series allows us to look under the bonnet of really incredible investigations. We'll speak to the journalists who did the work. We'll find out what they revealed, how they did it, and what they learned along the way. And significantly, we'll let you ask the questions.
So feel free to ask questions. Feel free to type them in a chat window. And I think this is the right time for us to admit that actually there's nothing confidential here. We just chose that title to get your attention, but we actually wanted to offer a platform to not hide things. As I said, nothing confidential here, but to share, to learn from each other. And that's why we started this conversation today.
IJ4EU Confidential. But we hope that maybe some, I won't say secrets, but some insider techniques and that kind of thing maybe we can hear about. Let's hope that people can learn something that they didn't know about the inner workings of complex investigations. So let's get through it. Today we are, of course, talking about the gold chain. Now, this is an investigation revealing how European gold importers are complicit in, or at least turning a blind eye to, very bad things happening on the other side of the world, in the Amazon. I'm talking about illegal gold mining, deforestation, rights abuses, and so on. This is a story that connects the refineries of Europe with the gold markets of Dubai. It stretches all the way to the remote regions of the Brazilian jungle. And this will be relevant to anyone who owns a mobile phone or a computer, because of course they can contain gold, these electronics. And anyone with gold jewelry who likes a bit of bling, they won't want to miss this either. Also goes for people who care about global warming, the rights of indigenous people, and so on. This is really an investigation that crosses beats, which is one of the reasons I like it so much. It goes from the commodities markets to technology, fashion to the environment, regulation to human rights.
And we have the right people to tell you a story about this story. Today, we are very glad to have here with us Ludovica Jona, freelance journalist based in Rome, who led this project, and her colleague, Quentin Noirfalisse, who was based in Belgium and worked closely with Jona on this story.
Welcome to you both. It's so great to have you on the show. Perhaps we could just start by getting you to introduce yourselves. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves. Maybe Ludovica, would you like to begin?
Yes. Well, I'm an investigative journalist. I'm Italian, based in Rome. And it's around 7 years that I mainly work by coordinating and cross-border investigations in many different topics, from surveillance to migration, deforestation, psychiatric care. And what I learned is that in any sector you can investigate, there is always a lobby which acts for its business and often against the public interest. So the gold sector we are going to talk about doesn't make an exception to this rule, but as an additional problem, it's that the lobby in the gold sector is much more powerful, rich, and secretive than other lobbies in other sectors. So it made our investigation even more challenging.
Yes, well, we look forward to hearing more about this. Quentin, very nice to see you. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having us. So I'm Quentin. I'm a freelance journalist since nearly 15 years. And I'm working on natural resources mainly. And I work a lot on mining. So my own area of specialization is the impact of mining in Congo. But the issues with mining are more or less the same all over the world. It goes with corruption, environmental crimes, pollution, people being deprived or from their lands, being expelled, non-compensated. And so I guess that's why Ludovica came to ask me to join this investigation, was really to work about all those big terms such as due diligence. What does it mean? What are concretely these refineries? What are they doing when it comes to gold? Because gold is something interesting, is that it has a very stable value compared with minerals such as cobalt, for example, who goes up and down all the time. Gold remains stable. And also you can have it's just bit of gold, it can be worth quite a lot of money. So it's easy to smuggle it too. And so it's not easy to track it. That's why I think gold was so interesting compared with other minerals for that investigation.
Gold is interesting. And before we get into the details of the investigation, let's just take a second to dwell on this illustrious precious metal that has fascinated human beings since the beginning of time, really. Throughout history, it seems to me that people will do almost anything for gold. This is a metal that has caused conquests and sadly genocide. It's adorned temples. It's underpinned currencies. It's been the ultimate status symbol. It also has extraordinary properties, doesn't it? It doesn't corrode. It's super malleable. It's an extremely efficient conductor of heat and electricity. And as you say, it's got this very stable value built into it. It's often known as a safe haven asset, isn't it? A reliable store of value in uncertain times. And perhaps I care a little bit more than the average person about gold, not because I own it myself, sadly, but because many, many years ago, about more than 20 years ago, in fact, I'm showing my age, but I spent a couple of years when I was living in Tokyo, working for Reuters as a commodities reporter on the Reuters commodities desk. And among other things, I covered precious metals, including gold. And I remember, just to sort of illustrate this value issue, I remember in 2003, it must have been, when the United States invaded Iraq, the price of gold surged to what was then an all-time high. Again, it's a safe haven asset in times of trouble. And it was around $383 an ounce, which seemed then like an absolutely extraordinary price. Fast forward 20 years, 2024. Do you know what the price of gold is now? Milica, any idea?
I'm sure it didn't get any cheaper. It's a good indicator of what is going on to the world.
Well,
I have no idea.
It's around $2,200, almost $2,200 an ounce. So it's gone from less than $400 an ounce to more than $2,000 an ounce. And I think that tells you something about the times we're living in. And it also explains why people and companies will, as we'll see now, do almost anything to get their hands on this metal. That's what this investigation reveals. So let's get to it. We've hinted at what this is about, but let's try to just sum it up for our audience. Ludovica and Quentin, I know it's extremely hard to summarize a complex investigation like this in just a few words, but could you try, as succinctly as you can, just give us the nutshell version? What is the gold chain? Now, what is your big reveal, as I like to say? I don't know who wants to have a stab at that.
Ludovica first.
Okay. Our investigation, first of all, we have to say that was our objective was to investigate how illegal gold mined in the Amazon linked to deforestation could end up in the jewelries that are produced in our countries. In fact, Belgium and Italy are the main European countries importing gold, and in particular importing gold from Brazil, due to the fact that we have very strong jewelry sector. So, for example, the Italian gold district is in Arezzo is the largest in Europe. So in Italy, at least I speak about Italy, then Quentin will tell about Belgium. In Italy, main finding was that in my country, despite there is a European Union regulation on the due diligence on gold and other minerals coming from conflict and high-risk areas, this regulation is not respected, at least is not implemented in the part which requires to state authorities to make checks to refineries, which imports more than 100 kilos of gold every year. So we have these very incredibly rich refineries with like revenues like 4 billion euros a year and no checks by the state. And another thing that was very interesting to me is that during 1 year, this investigation, I sent like 3 times FOIA requests to the government ministry in charge of these checks, asking, so are you doing these checks? And the first time they said, due to the COVID, we are in delay. So they didn't do nothing. The second FOIA request, they answered, yes, we are thinking the future to make the administrative procedure to hire the people in charge of the checks. And the last request, the answer was, yes, we started the administrative procedure to hire the official in charge of these checks. So the idea I got from these answers is that nobody is really asking them if they are implementing this regulation. It seems that European Union is not checking if ministries, if member states are implementing this regulation. It's a pity because this regulation, which came into force in 2021, is the result of long years of effort by NGO fighting for human rights and environment. So that the country which more imports gold is not implementing this regulation is really incredible. And it was not a public information before this investigation.
I thought it might be good to start at the beginning of the chain in Brazil, in the Amazon, where, of course, Ludovica, you spent some time, you went deep into the Amazonian jungle. And among many other things, of course, this investigation has resulted in many text stories in newspapers and also documentaries on TV, and you can see them on YouTube and other platforms. I thought we might just play a very short clip from one of the documentaries and just kind of set the scene. Because what we're talking about here, all this demand in Europe, of course, has a very real impact on people and nature in Brazil. And you saw that firsthand. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that part of the investigation. So let's just play a little clip to give us a flavor. And then I'd like to ask you just about what you saw and your experiences there. So here's a little clip.
Na região nordeste da Terra Caiapó, a floresta dá lugar a barrancos de lama. Nas cidades próximas, é possível ver diversas lojas de compra e venda de ouro, boa parte ilegal, extraído do território indígena. No centro de Orilândia, nossa equipe flagrou um garimpeiro entrando em um estabelecimento para vender ouro.
Nós chamamos de garimpo de aluvião. E essa retirada desse material, tanto da vegetação quanto do removimento desse material, mata o rio, né? Você muda o curso natural do rio e você acaba injetando uma carga de material sólido muito grande. O pescado ele fica inviabilizado com a turbidez alta. Enfim, os impactos vão desde de impactos de ordem ambiental até de ordem social também.
Quando eu tinha 11 anos de idade, o rio era tudo limpo, saudável, né? Limpo, peixe.
E como é que é hoje?
Hoje está sujo, estragado, de garimpo. Barro, mercúrio, tudo estragado. Aí eu me sinto dor, né? Eu sinto dor, eu vejo muitos parentes, minha família sofrendo. Eu me sinto dor.
Okay. Ludovica, what is the scale of this illegal gold mining in the Amazon? What is the impact on local people? We saw one guy there, and the other people we spoke to, I'm sure. What does it look like?
According to studies from different centers, NGOs, between the 1/3 and the half of the gold mine in Brazil is illegally mined, and all of this gold is exported. So the impact of illegal mining is very strong. It increased a lot during the Bolsonaro administration. And to give an idea of the impact, also how the phenomena is spread, there is a name for a gold miners, which is garimpo. The garimpos are the gold miners. So, and garimpos activities is increasing a lot. I think it's probably also linked to the rise of price of gold recently, but you could see in these images that the consequences, the impact in the Amazon is strong, and the impact is first of all on the environmental. So you have seen the images from the drone. So all this mud, and especially the river are polluted. We have some drone images that show the river, which is green-blue color, and when it comes aside to the gold mine, it becomes this horrible light brown. And this is the image of the impact of the pollution and also the poisoning of the Amazon and of the people who live in the Amazon. That indigenous people person who was interviewed, he was saying that he used to bath in the river when he was young, but now it's impossible. They are very worried for children because gold miners use mercury to separate gold from ground residues, and this is very polluting. It is also banned by the United Nations that say that this can cause permanent brain damage and birth defect. So it's very dangerous. So the impact to the people, to the environmental, and also, according to some NGO, also from what we saw, there is also, it is bringing violence and conflict among indigenous people, because some of them accept money from garimpos, from gold miners, because they don't have any other source of income, and others just get the pollution, the poison. So, of course, there are conflicts among communities. So it's very complex situation. And some communities told us, yes, we accept garimpos because we don't have other sources. And even if this indigenous land should be protected. So it's complicated. It's also linked to the fact that indigenous people now, young people, they just don't accept to live just in the nature without, they want also other things, that want to live in another way. So it's very complex problem. It's a very complex problem.
Was it hard to get them talk to you? How did they accept you?
Of course, we went through a Brazilian colleague, and the voice and the video that you have watched is him, and also through an NGO that helped us to go in the territories.
Did you ever feel that it was dangerous for you?
The colleague which brought us, Yuri Potter, is an investigative journalist specialized in the Amazon investigation in the Amazon. So he made sure that we could quite safely go there. But yes, everything is very dangerous because these territories are often without internet connection, without phone connection. The streets, the roads are very bad. So we didn't go, for example, inside the gold mine because it could be dangerous. I mean, garimpos, gold miners are always armed with weapons. So we cannot just call the police if we get into trouble. So the way that we could see the gold mines is only through this drone that could travel for 5 kilometers. And so we could see through the drone the gold mine, but being at a certain distance and be safe, quite safe at least. Yes, of course, it's very important. It's the only way to go there is through NGOs and local people.
Absolutely. Now, of course, this illegally mined gold ends up in our jewelry, in our electronic devices, probably in our financial markets in Europe and elsewhere in the world. So I'm interested to know how it gets from, these illegal mines, these alluvial mines, I think they are, into the global markets. Because after all, we can think of this as a kind of blood mineral, can't we? It's illegal. It comes at a huge human and environmental cost. And of course, there are, you would think, regulations and so on in place to stop that coming into the markets. How does it do it? I know that the Middle East is a key part of this puzzle, whereas essentially gold laundering takes place. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Should I go?
Please, Quentin.
Yeah. Okay. So the issue with gold is that it's laundered nearby the place where it's mined. It's true for Brazil, but it's true for Congo and for a lot of other countries. It's just like in Brazil, so they issue some kind of certificate telling, no, it's gold, it's okay. And then it goes from the mining side to the gold buyers in the big cities such as Sao Paulo, for example. And there they issue at the customs and so on. They make all the paperwork, and then the gold can be sold to several actors. And the gold market has changed a lot during the last year, because you have, for example, four of the 10 biggest refineries of gold are in Switzerland. In Ticino, which is like a small canton, as they say, like a small subdivision of Switzerland, they are there, and they have like a gold tradition of like refining gold, because the gold, when you export it, it still has to be refined to reach a level of purity which is like 99.99%. On the gold mining side, it's a bit refined and it reached something like 95, 96. But then you need to have like access to knowledge and engineering and big machines to refine it before it goes into mostly the jewelry market. Then you had Switzerland, which was really like the main place. Then you had Italy, and you had Belgium also with a few refineries, and we will come to that because we have investigated a lot a specific Belgian family with a very dirty story in the gold business, and we can tell more about the Goods family afterwards, because they were really at the beginning of the investigation. But Dubai has become now more like the world hub for gold, which was not. They were not as big 10 years ago. They have decided to invest heavily in two ways of buying gold and then laundering it. Is that when you go in Dubai, you have like the official companies who import gold, they refine it, then they sell it. And then you have also the gold market, like the souk, which is like a market where you can buy gold very easily and so on. And most of the laundered gold with dubious origin goes to that market. And then it goes all over the world in places such as India, where you have like a very quickly growing jewelry market. And then it can also come back in Europe. So Dubai has become like a center place in the way where you're gonna lose track of the gold in Dubai because you have like such a high level of secrecy, and it's so important for them in terms of money, that gold market, that they are really not transparent about that. It's totally nearly impossible, in fact, to work properly in Dubai on that question, and it's impossible to get access to documents because you have like it's really a tax haven for gold, to say it like that. So that's the way it has like changed a lot. And of course, in Switzerland, which is not in the European Union, you have also a high level of secrecy. So when the gold comes and is bought by these refineries, then they're just going to tell you or send you an email saying, we have a certificate because we are part of the LBMA, which is the London Bullion Market Association. London being like the place where gold is, and a lot of metals, is the metal stock market is mostly in London. And then you have that association, that organization, the London Bullion Market Association, which is like the answer of the industry to say, no, our gold is clean because we have like the paperwork and mostly like that. So that's a bit like, to sum it up, that's the way it works.
We have a question coming in from a listener, Gabriella, who asks, how has the rise of Dubai as a gold hub impacted the main Swiss refineries? I guess you've kind of hinted at that, but is there a sense that Dubai is now...
Dubai, I mean, Swiss refineries are buying a lot of gold from Dubai. There is an investigation by the NGO Swissaid, which found out that Swiss refinery main Valcambi, which is probably the biggest refineries in the world.
I think we've lost Ludovica.
Yeah,
perhaps her camera.
I can take her answer. Yeah. So Switzerland, these big four, these are the four biggest refinery, and you have like Valcambi is one of the biggest ones. They import through Dubai, whereas in the past they were like mostly importing either directly or through other hubs. And then, so I don't think it has impacted their business. I think it's another opportunity for them to get their hand on gold, which is what they are looking for, because I guess that most of their gold come from industrial mining, which is a bit better in terms of process. But then you complete with artisanal mining, because at some point, it's a way to say, like, the artisanal miners, they are just going to look for their own interest. And so, for example, in Congo, you have that. People are switching from tin to gold to sometimes copper or cobalt, traveling all over the country because they feel or they know that the market is growing. As gold has increased a lot, and it's so difficult to put proper diligence measure in place, then you can go more or less to gold miners. You're not going to go to them directly, but you can send a signal, say that we need gold at that moment. And so the production will increase because this miner will see, okay, there is an opportunity to make more money at the end of the chain or the beginning. And so it's that. I think like these actors, they are really powerful. In Switzerland, they are politically supported. I think like there is no political will to ask them to be more responsible, to ask them to be more open, more transparent, and so on. We have not seen that because in a country such as Switzerland, you don't have even like the responsibility for companies owned by multinationals operating, for example, in Brazil or and so on. So there's been like Swissaid, which is like an NGO, has investigated a lot about that. They have like very complete report about all that market. You have researcher, a sociologist called Mark Piss in Basel, Switzerland, who has investigated the gold chain a lot, and they've tried to make something move in the Swiss society, and it's really really difficult to move that because you have a very low level of responsibility, corporate responsibility in Switzerland. So I don't think it has impacted their market because also in Dubai, and that's what they are trying to change. It's just like at the beginning they were like a hub where you trade gold basically. And so they're trying to industrialize themselves a bit and open refineries and get the knowledge, the know-how, and so on. So this might impact European gold-producing countries if Dubai just like increased its capacity in terms of industrial refining, I guess, at some point.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've lost Ludovica.
Yeah, I'm going to send...
Technical gremlins are going on here. While she's trying to get back into the conversation, we have another, it's more of a comment than a question from a listener whose name is Ole.
Yeah.
Ole points out that Egypt, Russia, and Turkey are the countries producing huge amounts of counterfeit, duped gold. Is that something you've also noticed going through these hubs like Dubai and part of the laundering process? Counterfeit, fake gold getting into market?
I must say it's a very good question, and I'm not gonna tell Ule that I'm able to answer that properly because I have not worked on fake gold. I guess this is something that can happen because you don't have scrutiny in those businesses. You don't have like that issue. There's been a big, like when there was the beginning of the Russian war, the war in Ukraine, there's been a lot of talk at the London Bullion Market Association to blacklist a handful of gold producing companies from Russia because they said, okay, this gold is not going to be, it can fund the war at some point. It can be counterfeited. We're not going to have like any scrutiny in a country at war. So this I can say, I guess it deserves more investigation. I think I knew a few gold buyer and merchants in India who often go to Dubai and to Antwerp in Belgium, also working in diamond trading. Yeah. And they told me that, yeah, in Dubai, you can buy like very poor quality gold on the souk, on the unofficial market, but you can also get your hand on very qualitative gold. And a lot is coming from Africa, from Congo, obviously from Sudan. So places where, yeah, the quality of the deposits are there. Like process is very problematic.
What was the hardest thing about this investigation? What was the most challenging part of it?
Well, to say that I wasn't on the ground in Brazil, so I know that there's been like a lot of issue to get access to like the middleman. Not really like the garimpos, you can go and talk to them, but you have like the middleman. And so we had that case of that Belgian family, the Goetz family. There are two brothers. They've been involved with their fathers in gold, and they've been involved in dirty gold in Congo, in Burundi in the 90s, also in Suriname. And one of the two brothers is now living in Dubai under European sanctions, being prosecuted for tax evasion and fraud in Belgium, but very, very high level of fraud. And they had a gold refinery in Antwerp, which has created apparently also a big pollution in Antwerp itself. It's in the Jewish neighborhood in Antwerp. And so the other brother, Sylvain, bought a stake in a gold refinery nearby the Garimpos zone where Ludovica went. And so it made quite a lot of noise in Belgium because this family was, investigated and ultimately convicted to very huge fines. And so the Goetz brothers say, we have retired from gold. We are not involved into that anymore. And so we saw that no, in fact, they were trying to do gold in Brazil because Brazil was not on this list of countries at war and so on. So what was difficult to answer your question is just like to get access to these people was very difficult. To make people talk in their surroundings, people who knew them. And for that, in fact, I realized it was much more difficult to investigate on gold, for example, than when you investigate a cobalt copper company. Because a lot of these refineries, they are not publicly listed. So you don't have the same level of access to information on that. And so, to me, it was like a bit frustrating at some point and you don't have whistleblowers in the gold sector.
Can I add something regarding
Please.
this? Yeah. This was the most frustrating and challenging part for the investigation for me too. And I also found a possible whistleblower, but this person couldn't talk because the refinery had asked this person to sign an agreement, not of total confidentiality. And according to this person, also Secret Service were involved. And this person also told me that when he decided to leave the company and was looking for another job, it was like that his computer was was under control because they asked him for a talk, for talking, and they told, so you are looking for another job, you want to go away, so they threatened him. So this person told me, I'm not going to talk to you and to anyone, and you are not allowed to say anything. She was like threatening me, and I tried any way to get some information, but not even an off-the-record interview was possible.
Yes, and we were
this is something.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was threatened. Yes.
Yeah, also the Goetz family, because it's no like what they do is just like they send you directly their lawyers telling you, pay attention, if you write anything wrong and so on, I'm gonna sue you. And this has become so common when you investigate companies who do bad first stuff, who have bad reputation, is that they're really using the lawyer pressure, knowing that you are a freelance journalist, in fact. We don't have big newsrooms behind us and so on. They don't do that with big newsrooms.
It's actually
also NGOs have been sued.
Yes.
SwissAid has been sued, and the researcher in SwissAid have been sued. A lot of money request,
yes.
Very big request of money.
It's worth underlining this point to our audience. I'm not sure if we said it at the beginning, that you did this whole investigation as freelancers, which makes it all the more extraordinary. And as you say, you don't have big newsrooms behind you, the full legal weight of big newsrooms behind you. Which makes you particularly susceptible to vexatious litigations or threats of litigation. I hope you haven't actually had suits. Have you? Or just threatening letters from the lawyers?
No, we didn't have a lawsuit, which means that there's no mistakes in the investigation.
Thank goodness for that.
I just wanted to add that this complex investigation resulted in so many stories published in many different languages, in English, Italian, French, Portuguese, I think. They're all listed on IJ4EU website, including the link to the documentary that we just saw part of. So yeah, so many great stories out there in so many different languages. So I'm not going to ask you which story is your favorite. They usually do. But of course, I have to ask, if you could do the same research, the same investigation again, what would you do differently? What have you learned? What are the tricks and dangers you now know how to circumvent?
Personally, probably I would insist more from the beginning on the public prosecutor in Arezzo, the city where one of the the most important Italian refinery is. Probably I should have asked with large advance the documents on his investigation. So because it takes a long time, and probably I should have done it earlier.
Yeah, I think in terms of tricks and so on, I think like something that I would have loved to get is really to have but you need to work on it for a few years to get access to insiders of that market. People who were maybe just talking off the record or giving you background information to understand a bit more how they operate. Because to us, it was really clear that the choice to go for countries such as Brazil, Suriname is becoming also a big hotspot for illegal gold and so on, had to do with something like people don't want to get calls from Congo and so on. It's very staying, so they thought, okay, maybe Brazil has not that issue with reputation around that. And it was really interesting to see the Goetz family, who know very well this network, this business, were sort of adding towards Brazil because they thought, okay, we're going to get less scrutiny there. So yeah, getting access to insiders. But I think then you need really because us freelancers, we switch from one topic to another topic. Unfortunately, we don't have the the right or the time or the money to specialize ourselves very, very much on a topic. So to me, like another advice I would say when you take that kind of investigation is take time to read books, stuff about history of gold, why it's like all that's around, because it's going to help you when you focus on your topic, which is like quite specific, sometimes with legal stuff, a bit boring. It's gonna help you to understand why you are doing this.
Well, it's been so interesting hearing all about your investigation. I'd say this is the last chance for audience members to ask any questions before we wrap this up. And while you're possibly typing them in, I would just like to tell you that our next IJ4EU Confidential live session is scheduled for July 19th, Friday, July 19th at 2 o'clock CST. And that's going to be about a fascinating investigation into Russia's drone warfare in Europe. You don't want to miss that. So do we have any more messages? Looks like Ole is in another comment. This is from Ole. In 2022, Switzerland imported 75 tons of Russian gold, worth about 4.9 billion. In 2023, it imported around 8.22 billion in gold from the UAE, which doesn't produce its own, but buys it enormous sums from Russia. And he's also given us the stat of 3.92 billion in gold from Uzbekistan, Russia's next door neighbor. So thank you for that. Those facts, Ole. They really do put the scale of this into perspective. Sounds like you're a bit of an expert on this subject, Ole. So it's very good to have your input here today. I don't think we have any more questions.
I can just react to that. I think it's really interesting what Ole says. Is just like the gold trader and people who are very imaginative and so on. So it's important that the states are not always like being a few steps behind and just like, oh, we're discovering that, because that's what Ole says. Just like it's likely that there is a lot of gold from Russia that's imported through Switzerland, but with less scrutiny and so on, and that might be dubious, to say the least. And I think it's really interesting to keep as journalists to check what our powers are doing, because we're not speaking about small amounts of money. Like the gold industry is something really important. And also I would like to add a figure is that like 90% of the gold goes to the jewelry sector. So sometimes we think about like the gold in our phones, and it's true there is gold in our phones and so on, but it's 7% of the gold usage. Like the big usage and the place where you have to work in terms of like supply chain and transparency, it's the people who make jewelry.
Actually, it's a little bit less. I mean, I checked. It's around 50%. Then there is also investment gold and gold in the banks. But yes, you are right that around 8% goes to the technology market.
Do you have any plans to continue this investigation to other parts of the world other than Brazil, for example? Or have you had enough of this? Of tracing the chain? Perhaps not saying.
My next investigation is not about gold in itself. It's about deep sea mining and space mining, environmental impact and legal impact of mining in places where there are no human beings, but a lot of very interesting species in the ocean. So not directly on gold, but I really would love to work more about this impact of the due diligence, and to look at what could be possible to do better than just the paperwork, and just saying, okay, we have good conscience, we have done the paperwork. I think there is something to do around that.
Antra is another of our listeners. She's asking, has your work changed anything? So what's the impact of your investigation?
This is the big problem and big frustration. I said that the gold sector, the lobby is strongest, more powerful and so on than in other sectors. Also, the impact is very difficult for me. It is frustrating when I read in magazines, things like, Prada is using recycled gold, the green challenge of Prada and other firms, because what I knew from my investigation is that recycled gold could just be also illegal gold laundered in Dubai, making jewelry in Dubai, and then sent to Europe as recycled gold. So the thing I would like to work more is the impact of these investigations. So they try to make these findings more available also to a very different kind of journalism, which is this fashion journalism, which is very far from us, from investigative journalists, but it would be important that to show more, to communicate more that recycled gold doesn't mean clean gold. So this is what is the challenge, I think, and also because I actually maybe the change I could see is that after 3 FOIA requests, the Italian government ministry say yes, we started the procedure to hire the official who will be in charge of checks. Maybe, I don't know if it's a consequence of my 3 FOIA requests, but I can say that the regulation is in power, is in the regulation is 3.5 that the regulation is should be implemented, and only after 3 FOIA requests they say, okay, we are starting this procedure. Maybe a little result, but I cannot be sure that it's consequence of my investigation.
Only 3 requests. Only 3.
Yeah.
Is that
request always perseverance is always a good thing in investigative journalism.
What about in Brussels? This is actually the second part of Antre's question. Has your work changed attitudes in Brussels about gold processing?
Do you mean like Brussels, European Union level?
I think that's probably where the question is getting at.
Well, informally, I know a few of MEPs who are really interested into digging in all these supply chain issues. We had like a few MEPs very involved during the last 10 years to get that European directive on the 3T+G minerals, conflict minerals, and although the directive, the law, was watered down by the industrial lobby, they managed to get it done in the end. So I don't know if they read the investigation, but when we talk, they say, okay, no, we definitely need to do more, because nowadays we have like the big due diligence package about due diligence for everything, like from clothes to minerals and so on, has been voted. It has to be implemented in the law. And so it means that they will have to do something. So I guess people think it's important to change our attitude, especially when you have all the debate around strategic minerals in Europe, how to get them, the reopening of mines, because of course people in Europe think they are better in terms of mining, but you've had a lot of environmental issues in Finland when it comes to cobalt mining and so on. So you have a few people interested. However, I think the shift to the right of Europe in general is not a good news in terms of corporate responsibility and so on.
Absolutely. Well, you're getting some high praise from our listeners. Andre says you did a great job. And Zlatina, I think I know who Zlatina is, at least maybe our partner at the European Journalism Center. She says, this was super interesting. Thank you, Ludovica and Quentin. Keep up the good work. But we have one more question from Gabriela. She just wants to sneak in here. I think we can fit it in. She's asking, were FOIAs, Freedom of Information requests, were they your main tool for this investigation, or were there other ways of tracing the chain?
For me, it was my main tool for this investigation, but we tried other. As you said, we tried also whistleblowers, and the result was no. And We tried also, maybe Quentin can tell more, working with that technology tool to track companies, owners, maybe Olaf.
Yeah,
Aleph.
we used a lot Aleph from OCCRP program, which is like gathering all the databases of public information on companies and so on. Not really freedom of information request for my part in Belgium, but definitely official emails, putting a lot of pressure on public servants to give us information about import of gold, notably at the customs, because we used a lot the UN Comtrade database, which is like the database for the trading of commodities. But often there are mistakes. You cannot like confirm the figures with the national figures on the imports and so on. So you have to be like, and I found it was funny because it was not that they were not willing to give us the information. They say, well, it's private information when it comes to name of companies and so on. But in fact, I had decided that they didn't have a lot of information about what was happening with gold in Belgium in general. They had very roughly figures and so on, but not somebody who told me, yes, we are worried about that, or Brazil is on our radar, or something like that. It was, I think they just like didn't care a lot about that.
Well, Ludovica, Quentin, it's been absolutely fascinating. I think I can say that the audience would agree with me, and some of the comments coming in are things like, from Maria, thank you, amazing work, she says, and I would certainly agree with that. So thank you so much for your dedication to investigative journalism and for giving us a real
Thank you for funding
insight.
this investigation.
It was a great
for your help.
pleasure,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that IJ4EU could support this. Anyone who's interested in seeing more about this investigation, and others, of course, can go to the IJ4EU website, ij4eu.net, look in the project section, and you'll find more information on the gold chain and other investigations. Milica, did you want to?
I just wanted to thank you both very much once again. It was very interesting. Let's say every minute was golden. So we learned a lot. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us, and see you next time on IJ4EU Confidential. Take care now.